Hey everybody, I'm back once again for the second lesson of the college application course. During the last lesson, we talked all about mindset, what you need to think about before you start your application. But during that lesson, we talked a lot about students who play tennis, students who are very good at school, students who've done internships. You may have been wondering, Mr. Abdulaziz, how do universities even know this information? They know it through the application components. So far, there are 8 components that you need to focus on when you apply to university. And through those 8 components, you build your entire application. So let's take a look at what those components are, one by one. Starting off with the grade point average. We'll then talk about the standardized tests, college essay and supplemental essays, recommendation letters, extracurricular activities and honors, as well as the portfolio for arts, online presence, and finally, the IELTS. Let's get started. Let's start off by talking about the GPA. The GPA will be one number that you send to universities. It'll be a culmination of all the grades you've received from your school year. In the Uzbek system, our GPA is out of 5. You may even call this the Godovoy Ocenka. So, what do I have to say about the GPA? The reason for why it's important to universities is because they want to see how well you're able to do at school. They don't want to accept a student who has a very bad GPA, because if the student comes to university with bad GPA, they're also going to get an even worse GPA at university. They want to make sure that you are hardworking in a school environment. Also, the GPA is the hardest part of the application to fake. To get an SAT, maybe you have to prepare for a few months. To do some volunteering activities, you could probably do those in a few weeks. But with the GPA, you need to have worked on it for at least a year, or maybe even more. So that's why it's considered to be the #1 top priority for most universities. So if you have a GPA that is over 4.5, pretty good. If your GPA is over 4.7, I would say that this increases your chances even higher for getting a scholarship. And if you have a perfect GPA, well done. But right now you might be thinking, but Mr. Abdulaziz, how are they supposed to understand our GPA? Won't they know that it's too easy? Well, that's not the case with universities. Because they're not actually from Uzbekistan, they're not actually from Germany, Thailand, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, they don't understand any of our systems. And so that's why the next component comes into consideration, which are standardized tests. Standardized tests like the SAT allow universities to understand how academically strong you are as an applicant. Let's say that one student has a perfect GPA. However, their SAT is 1,240. Well, at that point, the university knows, okay, this student has a very simple education system. Whereas, if there's another student with, let's say, 4.6 GPA out of 5, but his SAT score is 1,470, at that point, the university might like this applicant more than this one. So that's why I want you guys to consider not just GPA, but also the SAT at the same time. Make sure that either both of them are high, or at least one of them is high, so that they can compensate for each other. Next, we have the college essay and supplemental essays. Why do universities require an essay? Well, think about it. Your GPA is just a number. Your SAT score is just a number. Even if that number is very high, do universities want to understand you as a human being? Think back to the mindset. A college admissions officer is a person sitting on their computer, and they see you from a computer as well. You need to show your human aspect to them through behind the screen, and the essay allows you to do that. There's one big essay that you need to write for universities, which is the college essay. You have a maximum of 650 words, and you can write about any topic you want. The reason why they let you write about anything is because they want to see what you're going to choose to write about. Remember, this is the big essay, and the topic that you choose will tell a lot about your personality. What about the other essays? Well, they are called supplementals. Some universities will require supplemental essays based on topics that they want to hear from you. There are two types of supplemental essays: practical essays and creative essays. Let's talk about the practical ones. These are the ones that want to hear exact answers from you. They want clear reasons from you, and they want to know why. Let me give you an example. Most universities will ask for a why statement. For example, Northwestern asks for a why Northwestern statement. Dartmouth might ask for a why Dartmouth statement. Here they want to know exactly why you're applying to their university. How do you plan to benefit from them? And how you might benefit them as well. As you can see, it's very practical. Another type of practical essay would be write about your favorite extracurricular activity and tell us why. These universities want to understand how you did during that extracurricular activity in a very practical way. The second type of supplemental essay is the creative ones. The creative supplemental essays are not going to ask you to give a technical answer, but they want to see your way of thinking. For example, the University of Chicago gives the best creative essays every single year. One year, they had asked students to write about the topic. If the moon was made of cheese, what would happen? You might be thinking right now, ha ha ha, Mr. Abdulaziz. Why would they ask about the moon being made of cheese? That's very silly. But you need to understand that because there's no exact answer, students need to think creatively. And this also shows a lot about the students. A student that writes about the scientific implications might be good for engineering. Or a student that talks about how this will impact modern literature, well, they might be good at humanitarian subjects. Next, we have recommendation letters. What role does the recommendation letters play? Well, think about so far your GPA. This is something that you worked hard to achieve. Your SAT score, something produced by you. Your essays are written by you. So far, we see a lot of you, and you. However, the universities want to understand you from someone else's perspective. That's why they'll ask about recommendation letters. There are many types of recommendation letters. There are the teacher recommendations, which need to be written by one of your current teachers. You need a counselor recommendation letter, which needs to be written by your college counselor. We'll talk about the college counselor later. The third one, peer recommendation, that needs to be written by someone who is your age. And the last one, the optional recommendation letters, which could be written by anyone else. You need to make sure that in your recommendation letters, you seem like a great candidate. And don't just write, this student is very great, or this student is capable of doing many amazing things. No, your recommenders need to give good examples of you performing the way you are being talked about. They shouldn't just say, this person is very kind. Instead, they should write a story about how kind you were. But we'll get into more details about that later. Next, we have extracurricular activities. What role do the extracurricular activities play? Well, so far, everything we've talked about is very academic. Your GPA is academic, SAT academic, college essays also academic, recommendation letters very formal as well. The extracurricular activities give the university a sense of who you are outside of academics. Think about how the word looks. Extra means outside, curricular means school program. Outside the school program, get it? There are many different types of extracurricular activities, and I could talk about this for hours. But one thing I want you guys to know from this video is that there are 3 types that you need to make sure you can balance. The first type is physical activities. Making sure that you can actually show them that you play some kind of sport, or that you do dancing, or maybe you have some sort of fitness plan, anything that involves moving your body. Second one is creative extracurriculars. The creative type involves making stuff. Creative as in create. Maybe you write poems. Maybe you can play an instrument. Maybe you've created your own dance moves. Anything that involves creation, you should also have something like this. And finally, service. You need to show them that you are able to serve the people around you, your community. This could be through volunteering events, or it could be through event organizing, or maybe some sort of internship. Make sure you are able to show that you know how to serve. Next, let's talk about academic honors. These are certain types of achievements that you've earned from academic purposes. For example, in Uzbekistan, we have something called Fakhri Yorlik. Maybe you could include your Fakhri Yorlik inside the academic honors. Personally, I would not recommend it because everybody receives Fakhri Yorlik. But school competitions and Olympiads could play an important role. Definitely consider Olympiads if you do have any. Or maybe you could participate in international Olympiads. Those are also very great. Next, we have the art portfolio. This art portfolio is not just for art students, but it's also for people who want to do fashion design or architecture, even computer science. Computer science majors can send their portfolio of different types of programs they've created. Now, there's not much to say about the art portfolio. Not everybody needs it, but if you're applying for these types of creative majors, then you would definitely want to consider making a portfolio. One thing that a lot of students don't realize is that they need to make sure they have a good online presence. This means that on social media, maybe Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, their accounts need to be presentable. Why, Mr. Abdulaziz? Would universities check our Instagrams? Well, actually, in most cases, they won't. But in some cases, it becomes the most important thing. Let me give you a situation. Let's say that there are 15 students that the university is considering, but they only have 6 seats left. How is the university going to decide who to remove and who to accept? Well, through social media. Remember, they already love every other part of your application, just like everybody else, but they need reasons to accept and reasons to reject. So what they're going to do is they're going to go on their laptops, they're going to search up your name, and maybe they're going to find it, maybe they won't. You want them to find you. Don't think that you can just make your account private and they're not going to see it. Because as I just told you, they are looking for reasons to accept people. If they can't find your social media account, that's a problem. So please leave your accounts open, but make sure that they're very presentable. For example, the university should not check your Instagram and see black and white photos. They shouldn't see you standing in front of a Mercedes and saying, oh yeah, or something like that. That is going to be a problem. they're going to wonder, what kind of gangster is applying for our university? Do we want this type of person here? Make sure you don't have racist posts either. Make sure your posts are not sexist. And make sure that you don't talk about sensitive topics. It doesn't matter what your beliefs about gender roles are. You don't want them to misunderstand you. So if you have such sensitive posts, make sure they are gone. Delete them or archive them. So, before I let you go, I want to say, make sure your Instagram is presentable. If you need examples of presentable pages, just check my own Instagram page. Scroll down to see how my page used to be about 2 or 3 years ago. You'll see what a presentable page looks like. And finally, we have English proficiency. I want everybody to realize that IELTS and TOEFL is just a requirement. The universities want to see if you know English enough for their program. And so they'll only require 6.5, 7, or 7.5 from you. You don't need to try to get 8. You don't need 8.5. Believe me. Because for them, they don't care. They think someone who got 7 and someone who got 8 is the same person. They are native speakers. So don't waste your time trying to get an 8 or 8.5. Use that energy for other parts of your application. Maybe you also want to take Duolingo, but that's a topic for another day. Next, I also want to mention some academic documents that you want to have. The first academic document is related to your transcripts. Make sure that you have your transcripts from 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. This counts as 9, 10, 11, and 12 for the US system. On top of that, make sure you have the recommendation letters from your teachers and your counselor. Regarding financial documents, make sure that you have bank statements, income statements, tax statements, as well as a car registration form and a house registration form. You might need some specific documents as well, but those are the 5 financial documents you want to make sure that you have. That's it for the second lesson. Right now you might be thinking, oh my God, there are so many components that I need. And that's true. There are a lot of components and different priorities for different components. Remember, you can always watch this video back, rewind the video, and take a look at some of the parts that you may have missed. Make sure that you're aware of all of the components and start gathering your components as soon as possible. That's it for the second lesson of the college application course. I'm your host, Abdulaziz. See you during the next lesson.